Welcome to the latest edition of Beyond the Arc. I'm John Gonzalez alongside our NBA insider, Bill Ryder. And Bill, I just want to give a credit to the CBSSports.com staff because sometimes they pick up on stuff that I have missed. And this morning was one of those occasions where we're on an email and they send out all the new links for stories from our NBA staff. And this one was, we have an update on the Tracy Morgan vomiting saga. And I was like, wait, what happened now? I missed this.
You missed this?
I missed it until this morning when it was exploding everywhere. So Tracy Morgan vomited on the court during the Knicks and Heat game, and the game was delayed for 10 minutes, but just fantastic work by the staff.
What I need to know is whether or not there's a video or photo, so that, because what a gif for whenever the Knicks do badly of Tracy Morgan throw. Just like, are you a White Lotus fan? Just like there's now a very dark Duke gif as a part of that show. I don't want to ruin it if you haven't seen it.
I am a White Lotus fan. I haven't gotten to the new season yet. I tend to wait until I can binge all of it. But yes, Tracy Morgan vomit. There's a metaphor in there somewhere about him vomiting while watching the Knicks. Although I think it might have been related to the Heat, who are absolutely spiraling and have now lost a record under Spoelstra, 8 straight. He had never lost that many before, so not going great for them. Maybe we'll get into them a little bit later. Later in this show, we'll discuss Paul George being shut down. I'm going to force Bill to do a little bit more tank talk. But first, we're going to do Bill's NBA title tiers. He wrote this for CBSSports.com. I encourage everybody to go and check out the piece. It's a good piece. Not long ago, the producers at CBS Sports HQ charged me with the task of coming up with 10 contenders, and I laughed and said, in the NBA, and now you have come up with 12, Bill. Really top tier work.
Hold my beer.
Yeah, let's start with Bill's tier number 1, the elite teams.
I think this is pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is not. I think the only question is sort of the order. I will give you something that you're not going to love on one of these teams. So I think this would be the order for me, by the way. I think I'd go Celtics, Cavs, Thunder. And here's why I put Thunder last.
Wow.
So I've got this other piece that's supposed to come out tomorrow. We'll see if I get enough people on the phone. We're basically Hall of Famer. I've talked to one of those. GM talked to one of those. Scouts. Give me their unvarnished, honest SGA, Jokic, MVP sort of assessment if it were today. How would they vote? What's their view? It's interesting. It's really interesting. And inevitably you talk about other stuff. And I had a pretty important guy, really sell me on the idea that the Thunder aren't going to come out of the West, or are very unlikely to, and was claiming, I'm sure he's telling the truth, that he was at one of the NCAA conference tournaments and all the NBA people were hanging out. And their view, he says, is that the West is the most wide open it's ever been. It sort of went through how SGA's ISO numbers go up in the postseason, which I wasn't aware of, and that they don't have a lot of experience like we've talked about. So I think those are the big three. But of those big three, only one of those teams has a proven track record under this group of actually having success, and it's the Celtics.
I think that's fair when we're talking about the Celtics. I don't want to skip over this Thunder part, though.
That's right. No, I knew it would hit you.
I mean, I do hate that. I mean, how do they account for just like all of the metrics? But I realize that the regular season is obviously different than the postseason, and things change and things tighten up. But in terms of their defensive rating, it's a damn near historic number. Their point differential is the best in the NBA. They've been crushing teams all season long. Chet is back. Isaiah Hartenstein is seamlessly integrated. They're really deep. I mean, they can guard 1 through 7. I just have a hard time. But I think that the Western Conference, yes, there are a bunch of teams that could come out of the West. We're going to get to them as we go down your tiers here. I just think that OKC is still the favorite.
But every year, like, there's a team that is like the number 1 team in a conference, and many years those teams disappoint. So there's a few arguments. One, and I guess this came out of the MVP conversation, and it's not my view, but it's a pretty like high level. By the way, GMs can be idiots on certain things, right? Like just because you're a GM doesn't mean you're infallible. But this guy's view, one of the things that he said was his view is that Jokic, no one is enhanced. I haven't thought of it this way. No one has made bad players okay players good players great players outstanding in the way that Jokic has since LeBron's MVP season. I think the last one was 2012. And was just making this comparison
13,
Jokic carries teams and players the way that LeBron did. And you have to think of this Denver team in some ways the way we used to look at some of LeBron's lesser Cleveland teams. And then his point on SGA was SGA doesn't. He's like, look, he did the whole SGA is amazing, and he plays great basketball on both sides, and He could win the MVP, but he said he doesn't want his players. He gets his ISO numbers go up. There's some techniques and some tactics he uses that won't translate to the playoffs. I'm not saying that I'm fully converted, but it does reinforce my worry that the Thunder haven't gone through the postseason gauntlet the way that the Celtics did for almost a decade to get where they got last summer.
Did it sway you? We've had this conversation before, but it merits revisiting now. Did it sway you on OKC versus the field in the West? Because I was still OKC with your field. It's tough because there are a lot of, and we're about to get to them, but
there are.
I get it. I understand the doubts. You know, until they do it, people are going to question whether or not they can. That was the case with the Celtics, right? You have to get some experience. They're a young team. They have to figure out how to do it. I just think that they've been so good. It's hard for me to doubt them going into the playoffs. Let's do tier 2, because some of these teams are the teams that maybe might be able to unseat Oklahoma City in the Western Conference. Tier 2 is recalibrated, rejuvenated, and dangerous.
Yeah, so this is, by the way, terrible reporting by me. What I just told you from that guy, I should have had that for this column. It would have really enhanced it if I had someone's, because I was a little skeptical at times writing this thing. Apparently I shouldn't have been. I've got 2 teams in here, and they're the obvious ones. They're the Lakers and the Warriors. The Lakers are an interesting assessment right now because obviously LeBron is out, and we expect him back hopefully in a week. And I'll say this about the Warriors and then let you have the floor. And I think we talked about this yesterday. If you go back to the trade deadline, and Jimmy didn't play right away, but if you go back to the trade deadline, this is a Warriors team that since February 6th, and it's a fairly significant sample size now, is top 5 in offensive rating and defensive rating, and to whatever degree it matters, net rating and wins in the NBA over that stretch. And so smaller sample size, but Golden State, since they got Jimmy Butler, have the exact same sort of eye-popping numbers that the Thunder and the Cavs, and to a very similar degree, the Celtics have over the course of the whole season.
Yeah, 14-2 when he plays, 14-3 since they got him. Although one of the losses with Jimmy Butler on the floor came last night when they lost to the Zombie Nugs. No Joker, no Jamal Murray. Aaron Gordon went crazy afterwards. Awesome. And this is my question for you, because I agree with you that I think the Lakers and the Warriors are absolutely Western Conference contenders. And if I were another team, including Oklahoma City, I wouldn't want to see them. Although there's several teams that you're going to look at, you're going to draw and go, well, that's a bummer. I don't want to play them either, because the West is that good. But after the game last night, Steve Kerr said Steph's tired. They might have to sit him tonight when they play the Bucks. That he's been carrying them over the last month, because even though Jimmy Butler has been really good, and Jimmy Butler said this the other day, he's been sort of deferring and trying to be a playmaker and setting other guys up, and Steph has been incredible. Are you at all concerned about fatigued, tired Steph Curry going into the postseason?
I am. I will say this to sort of somewhat temper my concern, and producer Aaron will hate this because he's not a Steve Kerr guy. I think it's likely that Steve Kerr is also just anticipating whatever blowback is possible. I mean, the Thunder are being investigated because they sat guys in a 20-point blowout win against Portland or whoever. It's ridiculous.
I got some problems with that. I want to talk about that
later. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So maybe Steve maybe Kerr understands, I got to sit Steph. He'll be fine, but I'm going to come out and really make this something people talk about. I'm going to say this so that when we load manage him for just exhaustion or just preserve him for the run, it doesn't hit the same way in the league office in New York.
Yeah, Steph even said afterwards, he's like, look, I didn't play well tonight, and his back was flaring up a little bit, and there's some question about whether or not he was going to play in that game last night. He said, aside from being a little sore with my back, I feel fine, and coach and everybody else are going to ask and wonder why I didn't play well tonight. And, maybe I was a little tired, but honestly, I don't think that was it. So, we'll see if they sit him tonight. I don't think it's a huge question or concern, rather. Tier 3, Bill, this is a team that I thought you would have lumped in with tier 2. Tier 3 is the best player means it's possible. I agree with you. I just thought that you would have put them with the Lakers and the Warriors.
I don't think the Nuggets are very good as a team, as a constructed roster. And I think
this is Aaron Gordon erasure. Did you see what he did last night in the win against the Warriors?
Oh my God. Yeah, almost had 40. And by the way, there's no bigger proof that Jokic is the great enhancer than the fact that we erroneously pretend that Russell Westbrook is good at basketball again. He's not good at basketball.
He was good
again.
last
he just
night.
Plays for Jokic. I know, but just the mere presence of the big guy, just on the team.
Yeah, fair enough.
Look, so the Warriors, we talked about the stats. You were the one that brought it to my attention, and now I'm aware that the Lakers had the best or one of the best defenses in the NBA going back before Anthony Davis got traded. And Anthony Davis I think there was a 30-game stretch or 28-game stretch where the Lakers had the best defense in the NBA, or the second best, whatever it was over that stretch. And AD had only played 9 of those 29, 30 games, right? Before, and then obviously traded. The Nuggets defense is garbage. Yes, and I keep pointing to the fact that they were 15th, I think, in defensive rating when they won a few years ago, and Jokic overcame it. They're 20th. They're even worse this year. They've backslid even from that standard. There is a sort of Jamal Murray reality that he does sometimes in the playoffs just pop up and be Superman for a Robin for a game or two. So I have them in their own category because I don't think they're very good. I don't think they have the same level. There is not the consistent level of help that LeBron can get from Doncic and that Steph can get from Jimmy, and the defense is bad. But also on the other side, best player in the world.
Yeah, going into last night, since the trade deadline, they were 27th in defense. That might have changed slightly last night because they played pretty well. Awful. But yeah, not good. But you're right. I mean, it really does come down to Joker and whether or not he goes crazy, and then what kind of Jamal Murray you get. Because absent 2 games in the postseason last year, Jamal Murray wasn't very good, and he had been when they won the championship. So what kind of Jamal Murray are you getting now? Yeah. Post All-Star break, he has been more aggressive, and when he's hunting his shots and not just looking to be, sort of passive and set guys up, I think that they're much better. But as we discussed yesterday, although last night kind of changes a little bit, that supporting cast afterwards falls off a cliff real fast. Now, can you get the kind of Aaron Gordon that you got last night? No, probably, but some approximation of Aaron Gordon can be semi-useful offensively would be helpful. And then Michael Porter Jr., I've been clamoring for him to be a little bit. He's just his baseline is just fine. He's just been fine, and you need him to be better than fine.
If they didn't pay him what they pay him, he'd be a really nice player.
Yeah.
But they do pay him what they pay him.
They do. And congrats to Michael Porter Jr. on getting that bag. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then on the other side, we'll go with tier 4. So you're saying there's a chance that's coming up. This is Beyond the Arc.
12 teams, one epic battleground, and it's the most feared of them all, San Francisco. This city is legendary for high winds, brutal tides, and an eerie, unforgiving race course. It's all or nothing.
Welcome back to Beyond the Arc. You can find us wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Please download, subscribe, leave a review, and then on Spotify, if you look below the play button on the Spotify app in full screen mode, you can leave us a comment or a question. Tier 4 of Bill's NBA contenders. So you're saying there's a chance, Bill?
The New York Knicks, where their fans puke on the, upon arrival.
They have a nervous stomach. They're just concerned about this.
A little update. Apparently, it was food poisoning. Did we get that?
Yeah,
apparently. Yeah. Oh my God. The Memphis Grizzlies, which I've been sort of on this since before the season started. And I think I mentioned it yesterday. Kurt Keelan on my radio show was pitching me Jaren Jackson Jr. as the 5th option on an MVP, the MVP ballot. And it's kind of got in my head with the Grizzlies. Like, man, if Triple J is the best player this year and Ja can be Ja. And then I threw the Pacers on there. And I know it sounds crazy.
This is where I wanted to take umbrage.
I will say this. Before you umbrage, you should umbrage. Last night, 4 starters. Everybody's out. And you know what?
I know.
Pacers win against the Timberwolves. Coaching, grit, heart. Take umbrage.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, that win last night, and I did flag that because they didn't have Halliburton, they didn't have Siakam, they didn't have Nesmith, and somebody else that they were missing from
Miles Turner was out too, I think.
Miles Turner, that was it. Miles Turner. Yeah. And you have an Obi Toppin corner 3 fadeaway in overtime candid. I was like, get out of here against the hottest team in the NBA in the Wolves. So I was kind of surprised by that. To the Grizzlies point, I just want to let's take these in order here. With the Grizzlies, I'm with you. I'm a huge Triple J fan. They lost to the Kings last night. They didn't have Ja. As good as Triple J has been, I don't know that I'm putting him in the top 5 of the MVP conversation or of the All NBA conversation, just because he is their best player. But for whatever reason, when Ja isn't out there, it's like they really struggle. They really struggle. And Desmond Bane has had a good season, but I think they really need Ja to be out there and do what he does. The problem is he had a shoulder injury previously, and now he's dealing with a hamstring, and he's been in and out of the lineup, and I worry about them. With the Knicks, is Brunson around? right? I mean, without Brunson, I know they beat the Heat last night, but that doesn't,
who cares?
You know, congrats. The Heat have been terrible. The Pacers are the umbrage one. Yes, they won last night. I just can't put them in a, so you say there's a chance tier, because even last year when everything broke right for them, what happened? They ran smack dab in the Celtics, and that was the end.
That's the experience. That's the building. I mean, so you're saying you didn't put the Pacers on your John, for the love of God, please find us 10 teams for CBS Sports HQ. You didn't get the Pacers on there.
I didn't get to the Pacers.
Okay.
I didn't even, when they made me do that, I didn't even get to the Knicks. I only had 2 Eastern Conference teams, and the rest were from the West, because I just think, like, you know, I would love to believe the Knicks have been fun to watch this year, but I just have a hard time thinking that they're going to get past the Celtics or the Cavs.
To your point about that, by the way, in fairness to sort of counter argument to this tiers thing, the person that I really respect, who was really pushing me on, it ain't necessarily the Thunder Bill, we're 100%. It will be either Boston or Cleveland, the end on the Eastern side. So their sort of view was, I mean, and I think that's, unless it's the Pacers, wink, wink. I think that's, I think
barring injury or something catastrophic happening, but then you still have one of the right. And it would have to happen to both teams. Otherwise, one of them still exists. And I don't know what kind of catastrophe that would have to be, because let's just say Jason Tatum gets hurt. The Celtics are still going to be one of the 2 favorites. And
I think it has
Donovan. The
Cavs, they get hurt.
Yeah, it would be.
I'll say this about Cleveland. And again, I'm not saying that they're not great. I think they're great. I know that the Celtics have the firepower for in sort of big games to win 16 games. They won 16, obviously, to come closer beyond. I've seen what Jaylen Brown did last year. Tatum didn't have a great sort of fourth quarter postseason, and I think he will this year. I just think it was an anomaly last summer.
Yeah, he had a bad shooting stretch there.
Look, you can talk about Shea's ISO numbers and hasn't done it, but the guy's going to be the MVP or the runner-up to the MVP this year. I'm not worried about him. I think Donovan Mitchell's an interesting, and I need to dive into this, an interesting question mark on his playoff reliability. Not for a series. That's not the expectation now. Is Donovan Mitchell able to be the best player on the floor, even for 3 games, every 7-game series for 4 series? I mean, maybe. I know he can score 50. I've also seen him go 9 for 28 at once. So I think that in crunch time, especially against a team like Boston, I think it's going to be interesting.
You're definitely got to see it to believe it, and I respect that. I think with the way that the Cavs are constructed, that they don't necessarily need him to be the guy over the course of the entire postseason, because you do have a redundancy in the same way that the Celtics do, where if Jason Tatum is having a rough stretch, you have so many other guys who can beat you. And Darius Garland has really stepped forward this year. Evan Mobley has really stepped forward this year. They have more pieces than they have in the past.
I agree. I'll just say you need some. I think you may not agree with this. I think in those critical moments, you just need someone that you can rely. There comes a point where ball movement and hit the open shot, like go and get me a bucket right now.
When things get tight, people start looking around for who's going to take over here, and he will be the guy that they look for sure. All right, so tier 4 had the Pacers in it. I would have dropped the Pacers down to tier 5, which is miracles can happen. I would have graduated one of those teams. You have 2 teams in this tier. I would have graduated one of them up to tier 4.
That's the Timberwolves. I think
that's the Timberwolves. Yeah.
So here's the thing, and I didn't really get into this, I don't think, in the column, but either the Timberwolves or the Lakers or the Warriors, and it's probably the Timberwolves or the Warriors, are going to be in the play-in. And at that point, I mean, it's not just the Russian roulette of if you lose 2 games, you're out. It's if you lose that 7-8 game, which is certainly possible, especially if it's the Clippers, who are dogged and play great defense, and if they get a great night from James Harden and or Kawhi Leonard. Now you're playing the Thunder that you think are the team to beat.
I know,
right?
that's rough.
So I think that's part, but you're right. The Timberwolves, until last night against the Pacers, were the hottest team in the NBA. They're playing amazing. They are just, I think, on the outside looking in of being a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense. They have they made the conference finals last year. Anthony Edwards is awesome. Gobert is back. Like you're right. They have all the pieces that make the finals. Shouldn't be shocking.
Let's put last night aside, because they had been playing really hot. Since Julius Randle came back, they had won 8 in a row. Were you and I maybe a little aggressive in our Julius Randle hate, because I still don't really believe in Julius Randle as a starter, and certainly not long-term as a fit for that team. However, they're kind of like starting to figure out who they had an idea this entire season. And you and I were like, no, 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 no. And then recently it's been like, well, I guess I get it.
So I don't think we were wrong on Julius Randle. Maybe we didn't give Chris Finch enough credit for the ability to manage that. And I'm trying to remember last year, but my memory is that when Cat went down to injury, Ant really stepped up. And I think the Timberwolves got really good down the stretch,
and
like post All-Star game.
They did.
Maybe, and Nas, maybe they're just one of these teams, right? Last year maybe was the beginning of a pattern and not a one-off. Maybe the Timberwolves just play really well when you need to be, and they get into sort of rhythm and momentum at the right time, because they are, Randall included, are last night notwithstanding, they're playing really good. So yeah, maybe Finch plus this is what the Timberwolves do. Maybe Anthony Edwards understands at a young age, like a lot of veterans, this is where you kind of have to get into the swing of things to have that momentum into the postseason.
Plus trying to incorporate Randall and Dante DiVincenzo, who got off to a slow start. And you have gotten a lot more offense out of Jaden McDaniels too, which is interesting. The other team here in tier 5, I just wanted to commend you on. Shocked that you put them here. Your Clippers.
I mean, look, man. So this is again, I did this sort of looking at the standings and sort of projecting that the Timberwolves they may not, but let's just say the Timberwolves are the 7 and they're in the play-in. The Clippers could be the 8 and be the play-in. And in that scenario, it's hard, but they have a top 5 defense. I don't trust Kawhi Leonard. I don't know that you do either. Like, congratulations, Humpty Dumpty's put back together for now. But
going into the postseason last year, we were like, man, the Clippers are playing great. And Paul George, who we'll get to later in the show, who has been shut down, he had a career year, and James Harden. Then all of a sudden the playoffs roll around and everybody was like, where's Kawhi? And that was it. So yeah, no, I don't have much faith in him. Is he going to be out there or not? That's the question. Let's take another break. And then on the other side, we'll continue with Bill's NBA title tiers. With tier 6, there's a lot of tiers. Tier 6 is up next. And this one is, sorry, it's still a Doc Rivers team. I wonder which team that could be. That's coming up. This is Beyond the Arc.
We dig it. Do you? The Pro Volleyball Federation on CBS Sports Network.
Welcome back to Beyond the Arc. A reminder, you can get us on YouTube as well. You can find us over on YouTube at Beyond the Arc CBS. Please hit the like button, leave a comment, subscribe. And if you click that little bell symbol, you'll get notified when we go live. NBA title tiers. Bill wrote this for CBSSports.com. Go check it out over there. Tier 6, Bill. Sorry, it's still a Doc Rivers team.
I do this every year. I did it last year too, and it worked out. Although in fairness, they all got hurt. But still,
yeah, they did.
My view on this. And for those of you that don't know, I am not a Doc Rivers believer. We don't really like each other. I think he is vastly overrated, and I think that has been proven again in Milwaukee. So I have most of the Doc Rivers or anti-Doc Rivers factoids memorized. I didn't realize, I just hadn't thought about it, this guy hasn't even been in a finals as a coach in 15 years. I mean, the grace
we show him.
He can't get out of the second round.
Yeah.
The grace we should. So they have Giannis. They're going to have the 2 best players on the floor, probably in, certainly their opening round series and maybe beyond. They're fine. They're okay defensively. I don't buy it.
Yeah, I don't buy it either, which is why I was going to appeal to you. I think that you should move at least 2 of the teams in tier 7. I would have moved tier 7 ahead of the Bucks and put the Bucks below, because tier 7 is too soon, but that day is coming fast. For whatever happens this postseason, the Rockets, the Pistons, and the Magic are in tier 7. I like the Rockets and Pistons better for the postseason.
I mentioned you, by the way. You got a name chat. You got a name.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
They left it in. I never look after it.
I don't think that they did. I think that they took that out. But
are you serious?
Yeah, I don't remember seeing it. Maybe
Steven
I skipped over it. It's possible that I skipped over it. I'll have to go back and look at it. But look, the Rockets, I think you're right. It is too
you're
soon
in there,
for them,
Steven. Sorry.
But I'm still in there. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you, Steven. The Rockets, I'm with you. They need a closer. They need more offense. It's probably too soon. They're kind of like new Wolves. But the Pistons in the Eastern Conference, They could make some noise in that middle grouping, right? I mean, if
they can, but win it.
Well, no, but I mean, I like their chances better than the Bucks. And what happens if they end up in a series with the Bucks? You would take the Bucks in that series?
No, but here's the thing. I like the Pistons' chances better to make it further, but I think in terms of the highest if I'm making a percentage chart of winning the championship, the Pistons are 0 or 0.0001. And I don't know, the Bucks are 1.5%. There is Giannis. And so it's not 0. There
is Giannis. Although, man, I mean, we've talked about this, but if you're Giannis and this is the grouping that you're talking about, maybe they can win around, whatever. It's time to go, man. It really is. This is your last grouping here. Tier 8 could have been
on the Rockets' honor because I really.
Oh well, that's your team. That I love the Rockets. But no, I mean, I don't think that they're actual contenders this season. In the Western Conference, I would have OKC, the Lakers, the Warriors, the Nugs, and the Grizz. I think that those are the 5 teams that could realistically come out. And the Grizz, like, last in that group. The other 4 teams I could see a realistic opportunity for. I'm still much higher on OKC. The Rockets, everything would have to break absolutely right. I just don't believe in them in late in game. I mean, they almost lost to the Sixers last night because Quentin Grimes had a good game. I mean,
well, you said this. He's good.
He is good. Yeah. Name checking at the beginning of tier 7. Fantastic. All right. Tier 8 could have been a contender. You have the Hawks in here, toss them out. You have the Heat in here, toss them out. The Kings, look,
these are not contenders. These are
could have been
alternate universe.
Yeah, I think the only
they drafted Doncic. My thing on the Hawks was if you drafted Doncic like you should have, all those years ago.
I think the 2 teams that belong in this tier that could have been a contender, if not for self-inflicted wounds, were the Mavs and the Suns, who we talked about yesterday as being 2 of the 3 most disappointing teams in the NBA. And Nico Harrison is never going to live that down for the rest of his days. People are going to, even if the Mavs somehow reboot this thing and figure it out and Kyrie's ACL regenerates and AD's adductor he comes back and they look good and whatever, people are still going to go, oh man, but they could have had Luka. And then the Suns, unless they change ownership again, Matt Ishbia has like a deep hatred and disrespect for all things future planning. Like, I don't know. Those 2 teams, it's a rough run.
It's the obvious. The Mavs were in the finals last year. If Luka doesn't get traded and Kyrie doesn't hurt himself, where are they? I mean, they've been banged up, but where are they on this tiers list? The 2nd tier? I mean,
they're in the conversation of can they get out of the Western Conference if they don't trade Luka because they got out of the Western Conference last year.
Denver range. They're like a Denver Nuggets kind of team, maybe.
Yeah, I mean they were scuffling this season because Luka was hurt to start the year, and the big men problem is still an issue, right? And in this alternate world where they don't trade Luka, they also don't have Anthony Davis. But yes, they would have to be in the conversation just by virtue of the fact that they were the defending Western Conference champions. So, man, if you poor Mavs fans, I just keep thinking about it. You gotta wake up Tracy Morgan. I'm gonna vomit on the court sick every day, just like a puddle of vomit in your house, because you're never gonna get him back. It sucks. One of the teams you did not place in your tier 8 alternate universe could have been a contender, the Philadelphia 76ers, who yesterday shut down Paul George for the congratulations on them getting to the right answer. A little bit late, but still, he had injections in it on Monday, Bill. He had injections in his left adductor and his left knee. He only played 41 games this season. He had just a long list of injuries this season. 2 knee hyperextensions earlier in the season, a finger tendon injury, a groin strain, in addition to the left knee and the left adductor. He's 34 years old, and they owe him 3 years and over $160 million on the contract that I and a lot of people were clamoring for them to give him. And man, was that a mistake.
Yeah, it's a disaster. So I can't remember if I told you this on the air or the off the air, because I'm obviously very good with the memory. I was talking to people yesterday, and somebody in Philly was trying to make the argument that they're not as bad a shape as the Mavs or Phoenix. And, the argument goes something like
Howard Beck was doing it.
Yeah. But I'm saying to somebody in the Philly organization to me.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Tyrese, we have Tyrese Maxey, and we have Jared McCain when he gets healthy, and we have Quentin Grimes, and if we don't screw this up and we get lucky or don't get unlucky, we can draft somebody. But I mean, if you had to build around those guys, you still have another year or 2 before you can really comfortably even pretend that you can transition away from these guys, even if they're under contract. I mean,
to be
it's brutal.
To be any kind of relevant / contender next season, Embiid has to play, and Paul George has to look like a version of Paul George that wasn't this season. This season, 16.2 points per game. It was his worst mark since his sophomore season, not counting the year he got hurt after 6 games. He shot 81.4% from the line on just 2.4 free throw attempts, both worst marks in a decade. Last year, he shot a career high 47% from the floor and 41% from 3. This year, 43% and 35.8%. Everything just wheels came off on this thing. And again, not getting any younger there. And look, he's defensively, I was like, okay, even if he comes down a tick from what he did with the Clippers offensively, again, career year last year, I was like, well, he can guard 1 through 5. It's going to be great. Wasn't good there either. So
he looked old.
You need both of these two guys who are, one is getting old and the other one is forever injured, to look like themselves again. And I have zero faith in that. None.
Here's the glasses half full for you.
Okay.
All right. One, PG's not great, but he's better than, a replacement level player. So this helps with the tanking. Right. This helps with the tanking. Shut him down. Cool. Please don't have any good games. And 2, I'm not sure I buy this, but maybe he was really banged up. Maybe being shut down and having this taken care of and just having time, maybe it increases the odds that he can reclaim last year's form, and this year's form was more about his body letting him down in the short term rather than the fact he's basically an octogenarian. I'm not sure I
feel
buy
great about 2 of your 3 best players just needing to go like convalesce for the next 6 months. Doesn't make me feel great. But you mentioned the tank wars, and I just wanted to take your temperature on the way that the NBA is looking at this stuff, because you said that they're investigating Oklahoma City for sitting some guy, and it makes you nuts. And they fined the Jazz $100,000 because Lauri Markkanen was unavailable against the Wizards, and the league was also, until PG got shut down, investigating the Sixers for sitting Maxey and then the Sixers for sitting PG. Now, meanwhile, this whole thing with the Raptors, where they're taking their healthy guys off the floor late in games, I guess that's okay. You can just like flat out, like, that's an egregious tank, as opposed to saying, okay, we're going to sit these guys late in the season. That used to be the traditional way of doing it, where you'd be like, you know what, our guys are unavailable tonight, we're going to do a little bit of rest. The Raptors are blatantly throwing this, and I don't hate it. I love a tank. You're finding new and innovative ways to do this. But by the letter of the law, the player participation policy says that because it's got an integrity of the game clause in there, and it applies to stars, which are defined as all NBA or all stars within the last 3 seasons. Well, Scotty Barnes made the All-Star game last season. So Scotty Barnes is getting taken off the floor in the 4th quarter, along with RJ and Emmanuel Quickley and Jakob Poeltl. Why isn't the league up in arms?
I had a few people who are a part of some of the other tanking teams bring this exact thing up yesterday, and they were pissed off. And they made the exact point that you're making, and they added 2 other things to it. One, they said that there is a integrity of the game problem with gambling. They're like, when you do this, it impacts lines. Like, if you're trying to, whatever, if the line is 7.5 or 5, whatever it is for a bad team, that has an impact. And the other thing, and I haven't done this, but one of the people I talked to said, go back and look at some of these games, and you will see a point where the Raptors are clearly instructed to basically wind down the shot clock and shoot at the very end, even though they're down 2 possessions, I think is what it was. With not that like, they're blatantly trying to lose as part of to your point, the product on the floor. So and you're right. Like I actually, this reminds me of NCAA investigations back in the day, where I would roll my eyes and I don't care. Everyone, right or wrong, is getting paid. Half the kids are getting paid in college basketball. And I remember a college coach once telling me, everybody knows who cheats, and not every one of those guys get sort of taken down with it by Indianapolis. Same thing here. Everybody's tanking. Everybody of the 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 teams or whatever it is are trying to lose. Why are you picking on some and not picking on others? And why in the world the Thunder won the game where you got pissed off at them? They won by 20 points. They obviously know what they're doing. So it's just, it's so dumb.
I get that the league wants the biggest stars to play in important games, or just games where there's like some national TV exposure. And that's part of the reason why they implemented the 65 game threshold. But this whole thing, like, okay, if the Raptors are playing the Wiz or the Nets or the Sixers, cool, man, gloves are off. Like, how you want to put 4 on the floor, Hackman style and Hoosiers, go ahead. But if you're playing a team that like this could impact seeding, right? Thank you so much. And RIP Gene Hackman. But if you are playing a team where this could impact seeding, if you're playing the Bucks or the Pistons or the Pacers or, you know, a team that is actually trying, right? Like now, like if you're one of the other teams, I would be ticked off. I'd be like, hey, I need you to like try to beat this team tonight instead of like taking your best players off the floor. And producer Aaron brings this up, and it's an excellent point. Brandon Ingram hasn't played in forever. And like, is he getting like an ankle transplant? What is happening with Brandon Ingram where they've just decided that that's going to be it for him? I mean, are they just, I mean, he rolled his ankle. Okay. He should be back by now.
They're sending him and Scotty Barnes and all the other guys to the White Lotus to just like chill, hang out, be careful,
recuperate. Yeah.
Recuperate.
Anyway, the tank wars in the Eastern Conference are something that, you know, outside of like the traditional playoff race, it's something that people in NBA circles that I talk to are focused on because, again, the Sixers have that top 6 protected pick. And right now, Bill, they are the 5th worst team in the NBA, just barely on tiebreaker. They're tied record-wise with the Brooklyn Nets, and they're just a half game worse than those aforementioned Toronto Raptors. So that's something that we're going to keep an eye on because I love this stuff.
I have good news for you. Every morning before I do my radio show, I go to Tankathon and I do one simulation.
Yeah.
And today the Sixers got the number 1 pick.
They did.
So clearly they did. So clearly it's coming.
The last night when they shut down PG, I took it for a spin myself and they ended up with 7. So the basketball guys on my end were not amused. They were like, "Oh, you're going to shut down PG? Too bad."
It's so locked into our personalities. I'm an optimist.
It really is. Let's wrap it up with team of the night. Who you got from last night? Some good candidates from last night.
Yeah, there's a few. I'm going to go with a team where we found common ground that we both agree this is an absolute contender. I'm going to go with the Pacers.
Okay, good one.
And thank you for coming on board. It's just a really, they're obviously in a battle. And I hadn't sort of seen this until last night. They are very bad on the Pacers on the road, and they are very good at home this year. They have a losing record on the road in a way that, say, the Bucks don't. So maybe being the 4 is really significant for them. I mean, maybe that is a fairly – so that like those kind of games where you have 4 starters, as we discussed, who are out. You're playing the team at the time, the Timberwolves that were the hottest team in the NBA. That's a nice gutsy win.
Nice gutsy win. They were on my list. I was thinking about the Nuggets too because they didn't have Jamal or Joker and they ended up snapping a 7-game winning streak for the Warriors. But I'm just like too amused by Tracy Morgan vomiting on the court. I'm going to give it to the Knicks and Tracy Morgan. And also the Heat have now lost 8 in a row. And as I mentioned, that's the longest streak under Eric Spoelstra, which is really saying something. But by the way, in that stretch, Bill, for the Heat, this is almost like an anti-Heat vote so much as a pro Tracy Morgan and Knicks vote here. But not only is it the longest stretch for Eric Spoelstra without a win, but Bam Adebayo was available for all of those games. And Tyler Hero was available for 7 out of 8 of those games. So if long-term, their whole plan here is let's go Hero and Bam and we'll figure it out. I don't know if that's a plan or not, but that's the 7th time for the Knicks being team of the night and 5th time for the Pacers.
Well, yeah, the Heat thing is one of the many interesting things is since the trade deadline, they're the second worst now team in the NBA. They're actually, do we talk about this? They're pretty good defensively over that stretch. They're abysmal offensively.
Yeah.
I mean, they have. They're still playing hard, though, is my point. They're still, I think they were 11th in defensive rating when I looked the other day, or 12th. They're still playing hard, and it doesn't matter. It's just a reminder that no matter how good your culture, it's great there. No matter how great your coaching, it's amazing. You have to have talent. And this goes back to my Riley, maybe it's time. You start to think that you're the main character all the time, especially in the NBA. No, man, it's the 5 dudes who are actually on the floor playing the game that are the main characters. And they don't have the talent.
Yeah. I know. If I'm Spoelstra, like you said, you just like easing Riley into retirement. You move into the front office. You put your feet up. You don't have to travel anymore. That sounds much better than coaching whatever version of the Heat this is. All right, that's going to do it for us today. We'll be back at it tomorrow live on YouTube at 12 p.m. Eastern. You can find us on YouTube at Beyond the Arc CBS. Come and check us out. But for now, for our NBA insider, Bill Reiter, I'm John Gonzalez. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. See you tomorrow.